Hi, I'm Big D, and this is House of Samurai. And there's my little pig. I'm going to talk today about hydraulic assist steering because Armstrong steering sucks. Get a couple thumbs broken, get your hands beat up a little bit on a couple rocks here and there, and you definitely want at least power steering. So, first thing I did was put the largest Grant steering wheel I could possibly put on it. That helps a lot. And then I went to Hydro Assist. I went with a steering servo and a Honda B pump. A Honda B pump turns counterclockwise because the engines turn counterclockwise. Why, I don't know. But it works really great when you go to mount it on the front of your engine, crank driven. No belts. So, mounted directly to the crank, it turned, of course, the VW motor turns clockwise. The Honda B engine turns counterclockwise, so all accessories turn counterclockwise also. So, mounting the pump directly to the front of the motor, you can turn it counterclockwise by mounting it face first. I cut apart the pulley from the Honda pump on the lathe, made a plate, drilled some holes in the front pulley, and bolted it right to the pulley flange. Run the stock Honda reservoir, welded to my shock tower, and do yourself a favor and go to Napa or someplace you can have hydraulic lines made and have them crimped. Don't do the screw-on fittings. I did that and I blew a couple lines off and I polluted the trail in a couple places. I ran a 1.5 inch, 8 inch long ram. It's a hydraulic ram right here. Welded to the tie rod and welded to the pumpkin. I did it on the passenger side because I needed as much pan clearance as I possibly could because the pan is kind of a center drop sump on these. Not you can really see it. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on there. But basically it's a Honda B pump mounted to the front of the motor. Sweet engineering steering servo, so the steering shaft goes through the center of the box and goes out the other side, so you have an input for your steering box. I have a manual steering box, stock Suzuki Samurai. It goes through the box through the steering servo to the box. So I thought that was the simplest way to go. I didn't have to change the steering box. The steering servo worked really well. I was on some off-roading page about dune buggies or something, and they mentioned a Honda B pump being driven off the crank, and I was like, well, with the limited space I have on the front of my motor, because they stick a injection pump on this side and an alternator to air on this side with the turbo, you start running out of options on where to mount a power steering pump. There's not a lot of places. So when I saw on the off-road page this guy with his desert race dune buggy, he had power steering and he was running a Honda B pump, I figured that was a perfect alternative to having Armstrong steering. So that's the way I went. It's worked very, very well for about 3 years now. Other than the first trial run I did when I went to lock, and when you go lock, and of course I put a couple washers underneath the spring and the pump to make sure the pressure's up to around 1300 psi. It overpressurized the screw-on fittings and blew them off, and as I said, I polluted the trail in a couple places. Tried cleaning up the best I could. It is what it is. But that's my alternative to Armstrong steering with a power steering servo from Sweet Engineering, a Honda B pump and reservoir, a 1.5 inch diameter with 8 inch long ram, and It works fantastic. If you got any questions or want to know how I did it or any other information, let me know in the comments, and please hit subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next time.